Hey everybody, it's Liberty Whispers with another video recorded in the same day, obviously, because of the bizarre camera angle thing that we've got going on. You can see in the background. I also have a microphone with a pop stand, which was probably in the shot for the last video. Anyway, so this video was something that kind of made sense for me to do, and I'm surprised I haven't done it yet. And it was also a bit of a request as well, so it should be interesting. I've only picked a few movies, because I should explain what I'm doing is I'm going through some of my favourite movies in my DVD collection, some of which I'm still awaiting to purchase, to actually have delivered, and some of which I can't find. So I guess this will be part one of I don't know how many, depending on how people take it, I guess. But anyway, so these are just a few favourites that I have sort of accumulated of my years of mass film watching. First one is The Shining, which, even though Stephen King hates, I love, even though I have no real sort of comparison to Stephen King. I just know that he really dislikes Kubrick's version, but it's Kubrick being Kubrick at his best. And I just absolutely adore The Shining. I think it's just an amazing film. Genuinely kind of frightening in a very unsettling manner, you know. A real testament to how you can shock and scare someone through very subtle but yet disturbing imagery, and just the character portrayals are fantastic, and it's just a wonderful, awesome film. If you've never seen it, you should do. There is a documentary called Room 237, I think, which has just come out, and it's all about mass conspiracy theories behind The Shining, like how Kubrick uses the film to get rid of the guilt he has for faking the moon landings, and that he puts it almost as sort of like a subconscious confession within the film, with loads of weird theories apparently. So I really want to see that, and then obviously go back to The Shining and see if I can spot any of those things in there as well. The second film is, it was actually my first pick when we first started doing Film Club, which, if you are friends with me on Facebook, you may know about. If you're not friends with me on Facebook, feel free to add me. The link is on my main channel. But Film Club is something I set up with a fellow podcaster and contributor to ScreenInvasion.com, and every 2 weeks we'll take it in turns. He'll pick a film, then I'll pick a film, and then we'll do what's called a public pick, where we get listeners and members of the public to suggest films to watch, and we'll pick out a film for them by random. But my first pick for Film Club was this, Requiem for a Dream. One of the most depressing, hard-hitting, horrible films you could ever watch, but at the same time a total breath of fresh air when it comes to indie filmmaking. Just so quick, so cutting, so intelligent, so imaginative, it's so incredibly well conceived and executed. I am a huge Darren Aronofsky fanboy, and it was this film that introduced me to his work, and it's just amazing. It's not an easy film to watch by any means. It follows a series of people and their addictions, now whether that be addictions to drugs, TV, all sorts. It kind of just looks at addiction as a whole and the consuming sort of cannibalistic force that it is, in a very bleak and frankly horrifying manner, but it's just an amazingly well made film. I've only ever seen it twice, which I think is enough for anyone. To ever see it once is probably enough, but, you know, it did enough lasting damage, both good and bad, to make it stick out as a stable mark in my viewing history, I guess. The next film is the one that really kind of turned me on to how films can be more than just entertainment, how films can be clever and punchy and symbolic, and how films don't have to follow a linear story path. I'm of course talking about Pulp Fiction by Mr. Quentin Tarantino. This film really kind of ignited my independent love for film. As a child, I've always loved film and cinema, but I think it was this film that really kind of broke me into the idea that there is more than just what you're seeing on screen, and that, you know, films just don't magically appear. That there's all kinds of mechanics and working moving parts that make them what they are, and that you can tinker with those and experiment and swap and change things about. And it just kind of it gave me an interest into how films work and what films can be. The next one is, I mean, I have many favourite John Hughes films, Breakfast Club included, but the one that I think has always stuck out to me more than any other, and it may be the case for some of you, I don't know, is Pretty in Pink. And it's not because of Molly Ringwald, and it's not because of this douche, it's because of this man, Ducky, who is... he is just an awesome character, but yet he is so scaled back, and he manages to do so much with such little screen time, essentially, that he instantly wins you over, and any character that can do that is always going to stick out for me. And I don't know, out of all the John Hughes films, even though I really kind of wanted a different ending, and I still do every time, and I kind of secretly hope it's going to end differently, even though I know it's not, I still do love Pretty in Pink. Next film is one of the more recent entries on my list, and it comes from Gareth Edwards. The film is called Monsters. Some of you may know this, some of you may not. It is, I wouldn't necessarily even call it a science fiction film. It's a drama with, an indie drama with sci-fi elements to it. It's basically based in a near future world after alien creatures have sort of inhabited the earth and created sort of infected zones. And Scoot McNairy, who plays the male lead, who is an awesome actor, and he's getting more roles. He was in Argo and he was in Killing Them Softly last year, and he's finally getting more attention, and I'm hoping that this year more people begin to realise just how good this guy is and just how subtle his craft is. But he plays a photographer for a magazine or a newspaper, I can't quite remember which, the owner of which, his daughter is stranded in Mexico in one of the infected zones, so he is sent to go and rescue her, essentially. And it's definitely not a film for everybody, and a lot of people might be sort of swayed by the fact that there really isn't that many monsters in it. But that, to me, is one of the most beautiful and graceful sentiments about it, is the fact that it kind of leaves you to use your imagination quite a bit. It does show you some stuff, and there's a bit of a payoff at the end, but it doesn't put everything out there. You know, it's kind of like the Jaws effect, when you see Bruce, the shark, from his angle, from his point of view. You know, you don't actually at first get to see the shark, but you know it's there, and you know it's kind of what the mind and the eye doesn't see that can often be more intimidating and exciting than what's just put out in front of you. So yeah, that's Monsters. I really like Monsters. It's a beautiful looking film as well. It's interesting because Gareth Edwards was actually a special effects guy, and that was his first directorial film, and the effects in the film, which are stunning, he did by himself on a laptop. And it's kind of amazing when you see them and you think, geez, someone has just sort of sat in an office and made this happen. The next one is Old Boy, which is part of the Vengeance trilogy by Park Chan-wook, who is a Korean filmmaker. The other two films are Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance and Lady Vengeance, both of which are brilliant, but for me, Old Boy is the one that sticks out the most. So, a number of you may have seen Old Boy. If you haven't, you should, and preferably soon, because there's a remake, and I know Spike Lee, who I'm a big fan of, most of the time, with a few exceptions. I know he's remaking it, but at the risk of sounding crass and cliched and tired, but you know, you should see the original, but you really should, because it's just a magnificent, amazing piece of work. Just an amazing twist in it. If you've seen it, shh, don't tell anyone, because it will spoil it. But the film is just amazing. It's just intense, it's visceral, it's just, oh my goodness, it's just engaging and just gripping on so many levels. Basically revolves around the story of, I can't remember the character's name for the life of me now, but it is this fellow here, and he finds himself one day locked in a room which he's kept in for about, I think it's 7 years, and he's basically kept prisoner until one day he's released, and then he goes on a quest to find out who took him and why and what has happened to his life since he has been out, with some pretty drastic consequences. It's awesome. I do like Old Boy a lot. Going from one extreme to another, I was a big fan of Jack Lemmon. I guess I still am. And for me, one of my favourite performances from him is in The Odd Couple, which is just I'm a huge fan of dialogue. I love dialogue. And that's a big part of why I really kind of like independent film, because I just love how you can do so much with words and chemistry between actors. And if ever there was a film that had chemistry between actors, it's this right here. It's just so funny, so on point all the time, and yet it's actually really contemplative and it's really introspective at points, and it makes you think and it makes you feel and it makes you laugh. Do all of that, and it's just one of those films that will, for me, always remain pretty timeless. The next film is one you may have seen. It's called Lost in Translation and stars the one and only Mr. Bill Murray. That's right. Ghostbusting Bill Murray. I can't actually remember the actual quote from Coffee and Cigarettes, but if you've seen that film, you'll know what I'm alluding at. If you haven't, go see it, because it's kind of awesome. And if you like dialogue as much as me, you'll love Coffee and Cigarettes, because that's all it is. It's just famous people having coffee and cigarettes and talking. But yeah, it's amazingly entertaining. Anyway, that's a completely different film. This is Lost in Translation by Sofia Coppola. And I must admit, it is the only real Sofia Coppola film that I actually like, to be honest. I mean, Virgin Suicide is pretty good. Marie Antoinette, I just couldn't really click with, and the last film she did, I think with Stephen Dorff, was just But anyway, Lost in Translation, really scaled back, really minimal, beautifully filmed, beautifully shot. Even, I think it's like over 10 years old now. Still looks amazing. Still looks really crisp and clean and just really pretty. But the story is so simple and so stripped back, but yet in its simplicity comes again great chemistry between Bill Murray and Scarlett Johansson, who are kind of both fish out of water over in Tokyo and form this strange mutual bond with one another. And it's just a really lovely, beautiful film. And if you haven't seen it, you definitely should. Excuse me. The next film, I think, should be on everyone's list. And if you haven't seen it, I know I've said this a few times already, and I'm probably going to say it a few more times, but if you haven't seen this, I think you need to stop the video and watch it. Well, watch the first part first, and then watch Godfather Part 2, because it is just incredible. Every couple of years I will sit down and I will watch Godfather Part 1, 2, and depending on how the mood takes me, I may even, if I'm feeling sympathetic and I'm feeling strong enough, I will watch Part 3. But 2, hands down, one of the best films ever made. Just amazing dramatic storytelling, fantastic characters, amazing performances. From start to finish, this film just does not let go, and it just doesn't stop being intense and engaging and gripping and just charismatic and just, bellissimo. That was my vague stab at Natalie. Next film is quite possibly one of my favourites of all time. It's hard to actually peg a favourite of all time because there's just too many. One of which I haven't actually included in this list, but it is Empire Strikes Back. Most of you probably know that if you know me reasonably well. I've also mentioned it in another video, but this is Fight Club, and I just absolutely adore David Fincher as a director, but I adore this film as well. And again, talk about great chemistry between characters. These two, Edward Norton and Brad Pitt, oh my goodness, they just bounce off each other so amazingly well. The film is really tight, the film is actually really kind of flashy, it's stylistic, but there's so much substance in there, there's so much that can be taken from the words of Fight Club alone, let alone its actions, and its metaphors and its symbolism. I should stop flashing my hand at the camera, that would help. I just get excited when I talk about films. But yeah, honestly, Fight Club I cannot recommend enough. It's been far too long since I've seen this, so I think it is time for a rewatch pretty soon. The next film is from Michel Gondry, and it is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Michel Gondry started off making music videos, most notably for like the White Stripes and Bjork, and then kind of upgraded to feature films. And this film is amazing. I mean, the story at it is so simple. It's about two people who exist in a time where technology allows you to erase things and people and places from your mind. And after a bad breakup, they have this procedure done, and then it's a case of trying to cling on to the memories of what once was. And again, we talk about Fight Club having so much symbolism and so many metaphors and just so much deep analytical prowess. This film has it in spades as well. Not to mention, it looks stunning because, Michel Gondry, even though he may have slipped up a couple of times here and there, he is a wizard. And he's one of those filmmakers that really kind of wows me and really interests me and makes me ask, how have they done that? And any filmmaker that can engage me and yet kind of probe my brain into thinking, oh, that's cool, that's clever, that's weird, how have they done that? Then I'm always going to want to seek out more from them. I don't know what he's working on at the minute, but whatever it is, I will check it out. But yeah, this one's great. Everyone in it is fantastic as well. Got a really good cast. Jim Carrey, who again shows that he can really do fantastic serious roles when he wants. Kate Winslet, of course. Mark Ruffalo, I'd forgotten was in this as well. Tom Wilkinson, who I love. Tom Wilkinson's awesome. But Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, quite simply unforgettable. And I would agree with that. And I mentioned a little earlier that I have a rather fond penchant, as it were, for indie films, and one of the reasons being was because of this. I was first shown this on DVD. Unfortunately, it wasn't during its VHS sort of viral spread back in the day, but I was about 17, and like everything else, my sort of taste was maturing, and I was kind of growing into the person I would be. Somebody I worked with at the time lent me Clerks on DVD, which is the first film from Kevin Smith. And it's such an amazing film because it's so very true, and it's so very funny, and it's so very raw. It is kind of crude, it is kind of puerile, but it's very truthful, and again, it's very introspective, and it's very human, and I just love it for all of those qualities. And, again, it's a very dialogue-heavy film, but, give me good dialogue with good characters, and you will keep my attention for as long as you want. And that's one of the reasons why I've kept coming back to Clerks over the years, and it's in this rather lovely steel tin edition. I did actually have this before, but I lent it to someone, and I never got it back, so I had to buy it again. But that isn't a problem, because the film is awesome. Speaking of indie films, one of the masters, one of the gods of indie filmmaking, Richard Linklater, is responsible for these two films. And I don't really like double disc feature sets, I never really go in for them, but these two films belong together. And eventually, when the third film Before Midnight comes out this year, if they do a Blu-ray triple disc set, I shall be purchasing that, because I just adore these films. Again, really dialogue heavy, but it works so incredibly well because of the chemistry between Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy, who is amazing. The prospect for the film, the sort of concept behind it, is that these two meet as strangers on a train in Europe, and they only have one day to spend with each other before they have to go their own separate ways and back into their own lives. But for like one day, they get to slip out of that world and essentially fall in love. And that's Before Sunrise. The sequel, Before Sunset, follows them 10 years later. But I'm not going to tell you what happens between them, because that would be spoiling it, and you have to see the film because I said so and because it's magical. Again, more dialogue heavy, chemistry heavy films. Annie Hall. I'm a huge Woody Allen fan, and I don't care how nerdy that makes me. But I love everything from his stand-up to his film work. So granted, he has had a few bad films, and he has been on a bit of a hit, miss sort of pattern over the last 10 years or so, but maybe even longer, to be honest. But when he makes a great film, he makes a truly great film, and Annie Hall is just a perfect example of that. Just sheer neurotic, nebbish Woody Allen genius at its best. Just fantastically written. I believe he co-wrote it, but still, it doesn't take away from the film. It's just fantastic. So funny, so charming, and just awesome. We're coming close to the end. Alien, which is an all-time favourite. I mean, I don't know whether this... I mean, obviously it has sci-fi elements, and it has horror elements, but I guess you'd have to class it as both, but, it really was like a breath of fresh air in both genres. just incredibly tense and frightening and just dark. And yet again, there's so much symbolism in this film as well. You know, there's so much meaning beneath the surface. It's not just about people trapped on a spaceship with an alien species. There's so much in there about motherhood, about control, about power, all sorts of so much good stuff. We covered this on Film Club. This was like the first film we actually did, and I was really pleased because it is a favourite, always will remain a favourite, and yeah, it's just cool. I like aliens. I love aliens. What am I talking about? I love Alien and Aliens, the sequel. Completely different film, but really good as well. And the last film, it only seemed fitting we started with Kubrick. Let's finish with Kubrick. Controversial at the time, banned, well, not banned, pulled by Kubrick himself for years and years. One of the most relevant films, possibly of all time. I would say so. Yeah, definitely one of the most striking films in terms of its sound production, its soundtrack, its visual flair, its whole aesthetic. Aesthetically, it's just one of the most jarring and puzzling and bewildering and just really fantastic, over the top kind of films you'll ever see. But yeah, again, there's just so much more to it. That's all surface. There's so much feeling and there's so much kind of a deeper. Oh, something just fell. A sort of deeper probing to find out more, and just The Clockwork Orange is just a stunning piece of cinema. And again, this isn't a film that's going to be for everybody because of the content and because of the characters and the nature of the characters, but if you can handle that, you definitely need to check it out because, the word masterpiece gets bandied about a little bit too much these days, but I think it's fair to say it applies to Clockwork Orange and to just Kubrick in general, who is, or was rather, sadly passed away, was just an absolute perfectionist, and every frame means something. There isn't a wasted moment on the screen, and anybody that can put that much dedication and thought and application and feeling into what they do, whether it be film, music, writing, whatever, I'm always going to be interested and I'm always going to have the utmost respect for them, because, to put your heart and soul and your thoughts and your feelings and everything you have to offer into something is incredibly admirable and inspirational, essentially. So there you go. That is kind of just skimming the surface of some of my favourite films. I may do some more. I may not, but if I don't, at least you have a little sort of insight into some of my favourites. Just a few of them. Let me know if you've seen any of the films on there prior to this video. Let me know what you think. If you watch any of them based on seeing this video, and you've gone away and you've watched them, let me know what you thought of them. I would love to know. And I'd love to know what films you've actually gone away to watch out of those. Who knows, maybe I've converted somebody on the Before series, or perhaps someone who's never seen Clockwork Orange. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, there may be more of that. I don't know. But in the meantime, whatever you're doing, enjoy. Whatever you're going to go watch next, enjoy. And yeah, I'll see you soon with a different camera angle.